on this planet. If you have not yet realized that the law is nothing more than a private security force for the rich and powerful, then the education system has successfully washed your brain into a smooth, empty marble. Let me make this painfully clear. If you stay up late at night, in the privacy of your own home, and download a few academic papers because you cannot afford the $40 paywall, you are labeled a cyber terrorist. The Federal Bureau of Investigation will hunt you like they hunted Osama bin Laden. They will surround your home. They will seize your computers. They will threaten you with decades in a federal prison. But if you are Mark Zuckerberg, if you are the smiling face of a billion-dollar empire, if you openly pirate millions of copyrighted books from around the world to train your soulless artificial intelligence, you are not a criminal. You are a technology leader. You are invited to testify before Congress. You are applauded by senators who do not understand how a computer works, but understand perfectly well who writes their campaign checks. Today, we are ripping open this mask of justice. It looks beautiful on the outside. It smells like a rotting corpse on the inside. We are looking at the story of a genius who wanted to give knowledge back to all of humanity, and how the bloodthirsty machine of the system ground him into dust. Welcome to the AutoArchives. There are no fairy tales here. There is only the bleeding truth of business and power. Aaron Swartz made one fatal mistake in his short, brilliant, tragic life. It was not downloading those academic papers. It was not breaking into a server room. It was not hacking anything that required real technical skill. His mistake was far more fundamental and far more dangerous. He underestimated just how desperately the elite class protects its knowledge rent. He underestimated how much they hate the idea of sharing. He underestimated how far they would go to protect their toll booth on human understanding. Let me introduce you to the real Aaron Swartz, not the mugshot the Federal Bureau of Investigation wanted you to see. At 14 years old, he co-authored the RSS specification. Do you know what RSS is? It is the backbone of modern content distribution. Every podcast you listen to, every blog you follow, every news alert you receive, that technology exists because a teenager named Aaron Swartz helped build it. At 15, he helped develop the architecture of Creative Commons, the licensing system that allows artists and writers to share their work freely. At 19, he co-founded Reddit, one of the most visited websites on the entire planet. By the time he was in his early 20s, he had already made more money than most people will see in a lifetime. He could have bought a yacht. He could have retired to a beach. He could have spent his days counting his stock options and laughing at the peasants. That is not what Aaron Swartz did. He took his money and his genius and his furious idealism, and he turned them against the system that had made him rich. He saw a problem. Academic research, most of which is funded by taxpayers, was locked behind paywalls that charged $30, $40, sometimes $50 for access to a single article. The journals that published this research paid nothing to the scientists who wrote it. They paid nothing to the reviewers who vetted it. They simply collected the work of the world's brightest minds, put it behind a password, and charged extortionate prices to anyone who wanted to read it. This was not capitalism. This was rent-seeking. This was a protection racket dressed up in academic robes. Aaron Swartz decided to do something about it. He wrote a script, a simple piece of code. That script logged into JSTOR, the digital library of academic journals, and began downloading articles. Not for profit, not for fame, not for any personal gain. He wanted to release the material to the public. He wanted to tear down the paywall. He wanted to prove that knowledge, especially publicly funded knowledge, should belong to everyone. He was not a thief. He was not a hacker. He was not a criminal. He was an idealist. And in this world, an idealist is just a corpse that has not figured out it is dead yet. He thought he was liberating ideas. But in the eyes of the suited bureaucrats who run the knowledge cartels, he was robbing their cash register. He was sticking his hand into their pocket. He was threatening their entire business model. If knowledge became free, what would they sell? If the paywalls came down, what would they own? If the world realized that academic publishing was a parasite feeding on the work of scholars and the taxes of citizens, the entire system would collapse. Aaron Swartz had to be stopped. He had to be crushed. He had to be made an example of. If you have ever tried to read a scientific paper and been slapped with a $40 fee, if you have ever felt that sickening injustice of being locked out of knowledge that your taxes helped fund, Type the word rent in the comments. Let me see how many of us have been trapped behind that wall. To kill a mosquito. Now we arrive at the most disgusting part of this entire story. The part that should make every American, every citizen of any country that claims to value freedom, physically ill. In 2010, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology discovered Aaron Swartz's script in their network. He had connected a laptop to a network switch in a closet. That was it. That was the great crime. No stolen passwords. No hacked servers. No encrypted data exfiltration. He plugged a computer into a wall. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, one of the richest and most prestigious universities in the world, called the police. The police called the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with all its billions of dollars and thousands of agents and years of counterterrorism training, decided that a 20-something kid downloading academic papers was their top priority. They set a trap. They hid a camera in the basement of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Yes, a hidden camera, like something out of a spy movie. They watched. They waited. They recorded. And on January 6, 2011, when Aaron Swartz walked into that basement to retrieve his laptop, they arrested him. No violence. No resistance. He simply stood there while they took him into custody. But the arrest was only the beginning. The real punishment came from Carmen Ortiz, the United States Attorney for Massachusetts. Let me tell you about Carmen Ortiz. She saw an opportunity. She saw a high-profile case that would make her name. She saw a young, brilliant, idealistic defendant who had no criminal record, no history of violence, no intention of doing anything but sharing knowledge. And she decided to destroy him. The initial charges carried a maximum sentence of about 7 years. That was already absurd. 7 years in federal prison for downloading academic papers. But Ortiz was not satisfied. She wanted blood. She amended the indictment. She added new charges. The Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Wire fraud. Identity theft. 13 felony counts in total. 13. The potential sentence climbed to 35 years. 35 years in federal prison. That is more than some murderers receive. That is more than rapists receive. That is more than child molesters receive. For downloading academic papers. Let that sink into your bones. Even JSTOR, the supposed victim, said they did not want to press charges. They had gotten their files back. They had not lost any money. They had not suffered any damage. They asked the government to drop the case. Carmen Ortiz refused. Why? Because this was never about justice. It was never about protecting property. It was about sending a message. The message was clear. If you challenge the knowledge cartel, if you try to tear down the paywall, if you threaten the rent-seeking machine that keeps information expensive and access exclusive, we will destroy you. We will not just arrest you. We will bury you. We will make an example of you so that every other young idealist thinks twice before touching our cash register. The system did not need a genius. The system did not need an independent thinker. The system did not need someone who could see the world differently. The system needed slaves. Obedient, quiet, frightened slaves who would never question why knowledge was locked behind a paywall. If you have not subscribed to this channel yet, you might want to do it now. Because the mainstream media is very good at turning monsters into heroes and heroes into terrorists. Now let me fast forward to today. Let me show you how the same system that tried to throw Aaron Swartz in prison for 35 years is now celebrating the exact same behavior as innovation. The artificial intelligence revolution is here. Every major technology company is racing to build the most powerful artificial intelligence model. And how do you train an artificial intelligence? You feed it data. Massive amounts of data. Every book ever written. Every article ever published. Every website ever created. Every photograph ever uploaded. Every comment you ever left on social media. All of it. The companies are scraping everything. And most of it is copyrighted. Meta, the company formerly known as Facebook, run by Mark Zuckerberg, the man who once said that people who trusted him were dumb fucks, has been caught pirating millions of books. They admitted it. They said, and I am quoting here, that they used a dataset called LibGen, which is a shadow library of pirated academic texts. They knew it was pirated. They knew it was illegal. They did it anyway. And what happened to Mark Zuckerberg? Was he arrested? Was he charged with 13 felonies? Was he facing 35 years in federal prison? No. He was invited to testify before the United States Senate. He sat in a nice chair. He wore an expensive suit. He drank water from a glass. Senators who do not know how to turn on a computer asked him soft questions. He gave vague answers. He promised to be better. And then he went back to his billion-dollar campus and continued doing exactly what he was doing. This is not hypocrisy. Hypocrisy implies shame. This is open, brazen, arrogant theft, celebrated as innovation. The same legal system that hunted Aaron Swartz like a terrorist protects Mark Zuckerberg like a king. Why? Because Zuckerberg has money. Because Zuckerberg has lawyers. Because Zuckerberg can donate to political campaigns. Because Zuckerberg can hire lobbyists to write the laws that protect him. Aaron Swartz had a laptop and a dream. That was not enough. In the eyes of the system, Aaron was a thief. He was a pest. He was a mosquito to be swatted. Mark Zuckerberg is a god. He is a visionary. He is a leader. He is invited to the White House. He dines with presidents. He is celebrated on magazine covers. And the fundamental difference between these two men is not their actions. It is their bank accounts. It is their access to power. It is their ability to pay the protection money that keeps the law on their side. This double standard is not just disgusting. It is an open insult to the intelligence of every human being on this planet. It tells us that the law is not blind. The law sees very clearly. It sees who has money and who does not. It sees who has power and who does not. It sees who can write a check and who cannot. And it bends itself accordingly. The logic that put Aaron Swartz in a grave is the same logic that puts Mark Zuckerberg on a throne. And that logic, my friends, is the logic of a cannibal. It feeds on the weak and bows to the strong. It devours the idealist and crowns the thief. On January 11th, 2013, Aaron Swartz could not take it anymore. He was 26 years old. He had spent 2 years fighting a legal battle that he could not win. He had watched his savings disappear into lawyer fees. He had watched his health deteriorate under the stress. He had watched the people he loved suffer alongside him. And he had watched the system refuse to show him any mercy. Even after JSTOR dropped their complaint. Even after the Massachusetts Institute of Technology asked the government to reconsider. Even after his lawyers begged for a reasonable settlement. Carmen Ortiz refused. She wanted a guilty plea. She wanted a felony conviction. She wanted him to spend time in prison. She wanted to make an example of him. So Aaron Swartz went into his apartment in Brooklyn, New York. He tied a nylon rope to a beam in his bedroom. And he hanged himself. He left a note. He left a legacy. He left a wound on the internet that has never healed. The system did not fail. The system worked exactly as it was designed. It identified a threat to the knowledge cartel. It isolated that threat. It applied overwhelming force to that threat. And it eliminated that threat permanently. The system is not broken. The system is operating at peak efficiency. It just does not care about your dreams. It does not care about your ideals. It does not care about your genius. It cares about protecting the interests of the people who own it. And Aaron Swartz was a threat to those interests. The day after he died, Google put a black ribbon on their homepage. They wrote a tribute. They called him a brilliant programmer and a passionate advocate for open knowledge. It was beautiful. It was touching. It was also a lie. It was a crocodile tear shed by a company that makes billions of dollars by controlling the flow of information. Google did not help Aaron when he was alive. Google did not donate to his legal defense. Google did not use its army of lawyers to pressure the government to drop the case. Google did nothing. But the day after he died, they were happy to use his memory to make themselves look compassionate. That is the coldest part of this entire story. The system will kill you. And then it will use your corpse to sell advertising. It will turn your tragedy into content. It will harvest your death for clicks and likes and shares. And most people will scroll past it without ever understanding what they just witnessed. Conclusion: staying awake in this jungle. The story of Aaron Swartz teaches us a brutal, unforgivable truth about the world we live in. A truth that no motivational speaker will ever tell you. A truth that no business school professor will ever write on a whiteboard. A truth that the media will never put in a headline. The flow of information is not free. Information is not meant to be shared. Information is a currency. It is a weapon. It is a tool of control. And the people who own it will do anything to keep it. The people who create value in this world, the inventors, the thinkers, the idealists, the ones who actually build things and discover things and share things, they rarely get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. They are used. They are exploited. They are discarded. And then they are forgotten. The people who own the rules, the ones who control the contracts, the ones who write the laws, the ones who sit on the boards and the benches and the thrones, they are the ones who build empires on the bones of creators. Aaron Swartz created more by the age of 14 than most of us will create in a lifetime. And the system ground him into dust because he threatened their paywall. Mark Zuckerberg has stolen more intellectual property than any person in history. And the system crowns him a king because he shares the profits with the right people. This is not just a history lesson. This is a wake-up call. This is a reordering of your cognitive map. You need to understand that when you use a free search engine, when you use an open-source artificial intelligence, when you post your thoughts on a free social media platform, you are not participating in a free exchange of ideas. You are adding bricks to a wall. You are digging moats around a castle that you will never be allowed to enter. You are feeding the machine that will eventually eat you. Do not expect the law to protect your dreams. The law does not care about your dreams. The law cares about profit. The law cares about power. The law cares about preserving the interests of the people who wrote it. Unless your dream makes the right people richer, the law will crush it. Aaron Swartz left too soon. He did not get to see how much worse the world would become. He did not get to see artificial intelligence turn copyright into a joke. He did not get to see billionaires literally steal entire libraries and call it innovation. But you are still here. You are still breathing. You are still capable of being angry. And that anger, that burning, righteous, furious anger, is the last shred of dignity you have that has not been digitized and monetized and turned into a product. Hold on to it. Protect it. Use it. Before the system grinds you into dust as well. This is AutoArchives. We do not build heroes. We tear off masks. We show you the bleeding truth. If this video made you uncomfortable, good. The real world is not supposed to feel comfortable. Leave a comment. Share this with someone who needs to wake up. And subscribe before they decide you are a threat too.